Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So, would you mind introducing yourself? What you are doing right now? What you've been doing in the past?
Of course, yeah. So my name's Sean. I'm working as a data architect within the government, and before that, I was working as a data engineer in financial services.
That's interesting. Would you mind diving a bit more about financial services? Which organization you were working for? What your role was there?
Yeah, so this was for a fintech company called FNZ based in Edinburgh, and I worked within the data migrations team. So this was looking at migrating data from legacy systems and thinking of your COBOLs and all these old systems from 90s, early 2000s into a new cloud modern platform for managing your pensions, ISAs, and those kind of things. And a lot of it was regulatory. So we had to look a lot at ISA contributions and looking at bad data from way back when, and pension limits and all sorts of things. So very complex migrations, very good learning experience. But I would decided to move away from financial services. It was getting a bit dull looking at the exact same data all the time.
Very, very interesting. So, moving on. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self at the start of your career?
Yeah, I think I would tell myself to take more risks and fail more than I had done so. So when I was looking for careers and looking at different things to do, I would always pick something quite safe or maybe in my comfort zone. And looking back now, I should have picked maybe jobs that were a bit more um, something that I've not done before, or some technology I've not used or tool I haven't used. And in that way, starting something and failing and moving on, I would get to where I wanted to be much quicker. Uh, Sort of related to that, I would say to travel more and to maybe work abroad or do the digital nomad lifestyle. So I feel I missed out a bit when everyone was working remotely in COVID. And I thought, oh, I could do something similar. I could go and sit on a beach and code in the morning or do my work in the morning. But yeah, I think I've missed out on that opportunity now. And now I've got a flat and a mortgage and I can't do that so much. So yeah, I would tell myself to take more risks with the job and also travel more or work abroad, do the digital nomad thing.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting because I believe many organizations are kind of moving back to in office rather than working remote. So
Yeah,
that's a good
that
piece
too.
of a good piece of advice for others out there starting up their careers. Um, Next one is what was a key turning point in your career that changed your perspective or approach to work?
Yeah, in the previous role, I started off as a data engineer and eventually became the delivery manager, so overseeing the team of data engineers. And shifting from being a team member to leading the team was a big change for me, especially when thinking about how to work in a team, how to deliver as a team, and those different metrics. And I felt that at the beginning, I was giving much more advice and hand holding than doing work myself. And I thought that I could just deliver all of this stuff that I'm delegating out to people much more quickly if I did it myself. But that defeats the purpose of teamwork. So I shifted my approach to say that deadlines have to be pushed out because we don't have the resources. I'm no longer a resource, and work more closely with my team members and make sure that if they need help, they're asking for help and really get them up to speed and coach them along. So that was a big change. I thought that the more senior that I would become, the more quickly the team would work. But obviously, that's not how it would work.
Yeah. Totally agree there. Being a manager is quite challenging. It doesn't appear as challenging at first, but when you start working with the team, manage expectation, it just keeps getting more difficult. I'm glad you shared that. Uh, Moving on uh, from that, when face a tough challenge at work, how do you turn it into an opportunity for growth?
Yeah, I'm thinking of some of the more challenging situations in my career, and a lot of the time it went down to not being prepared, or something not being configured, or somebody is not on the ball. And to get over that is always to recognize what the issue was, maybe in your mind know what to fix next time, or have a checklist. And that was a big thing that I really started to think about, is with any task I have, make a checklist, note it down. And another big one would be pushing back when you can. So obviously, a lot of this focus has been on kind of career growth and developing. But looking back when I was more junior, I would just say yes to everything, every deliverable, every task, and work crazy hours to deliver it. And now I know my value more, I would push back and say this deadline's not possible. And that is a skill, and that's some growth that people need to learn in their career, and that took me a long time to learn. Um, so yeah, I think the challenges a lot of time comes down to preparation, and sometimes you just need more time, and you need to know that you need to ask for that time.
Yeah, so the key message I'm taking away is that be ready to push back, because sometimes deadlines are really aggressive, and they are not really, um, you know, considering your work-life balance when developing those
Yeah,
KPIs to measure success. So that was a good message in there.
and I think quality is another thing there. So if you're making a presentation, or writing a report, or writing code, and you're rushed, the quality's not going to be as good, or you're not going to get someone to PR it for you. If the deadline's midnight and you're handing it in 5 minutes before, this is not a good way to work. And I
Mm.
think it's not only for the employee, someone who's wanting to grow in their career, but it's also for the manager to appreciate, like, this deadline obviously wasn't feasible, or this deadline was very difficult for my coworkers.
Very interesting. So it's about quality rather than quantity. So totally agree there. Last but not the least, and that's my favorite as well. So who has been your biggest inspiration or supporter in your tech journey, and how they have influenced your career so far?
I like this question too. So in my first IT job after graduating, I was doing first line support, and the owner of that company, obviously someone who's successful and very busy, he had started to do a computer science master's degree part time after work, so working full time and doing the study. And that was something that really influenced me, because I was sitting there doing my 9 to 5, feeling quite comfortable. I was feeling that I was learning on the job, and starting to learn new things, and I could see a career path for me there. But I then realized that I have no excuse. This person's very busy, and they're already successful, and they're still trying to improve themselves and progress in their learning, and what they know as a challenge. So I should do the same. And after that, I decided to do some more formal training myself. I tried doing some courses on my own, like online, but I didn't find it quite useful. I never had the motivation. So I moved to do either in person or scheduled, maybe like weekly courses. And the first one that I'd done back then was Oracle PL SQL. And uh, yeah, since then, I've always tried to do a bit of study, a bit of extra work after hours to progress and learn new things, and to help me in my career journey and career growth. So, yeah, I think that was a big influence. It really made me feel that I have no excuse not to try and better myself outside my career for the better of my career, in a way, because people who much less time than me are doing it.
Oh, that's an interesting advice on its own as well. So would you suggest self-training is more important to you rather than waiting for your employer to arrange training for you? What do you think, which is the best approach?
I think that self training, but with the support of your employer, is probably the best approach. So if you see something that you want to do and want to learn, you should do it regardless of what your employer says, but also tell them and maybe ask them for support. Maybe say that you need a few hours on Friday to do this, or you need to sit an exam, and get the time to help you. And maybe it's not directly related to your role, but I think it's a good thing for discipline and learning anyway, to keep keep at it, keep studying, and get into that habit, because it's very difficult to get back into it, and maybe you fall out of learning. Your span shortens. It's hard to watch a video and make notes without looking at your phone or checking emails or something else. So you really need to make the effort. And if your employer gives their blessings, that's much more easy to do.
No, that's totally spot on. I totally agree. Uh, I mean, a good approach is always a mix of what you want to do and if it's aligned with your employer as well, and making sure that your employer is on board with what you are doing as
Yeah,
well.
and I sort of briefly mentioned I found that learning with something like Udemy or pre-recorded trainings, it wasn't enough motivation to keep going or pay attention. I really needed to go something with a live tutor and a scheduled time each week, or in-person courses at the college or something like that. So, but that was me personally. I think everyone has to find what works for them.
No, that's very interesting tip there. So that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you very much for coming along, Sean. It was a pleasure having you.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me as your first guest.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.